when you realize that the Eucharist is Jesus, and by like consuming him, you have the Spirit within you. It's like, why would you give up that opportunity?
Like that was probably the one thing that like, wow, that doesn't like feel right.
If you surround yourself by people using drugs, there's a good chance you might find yourself doing drugs. You know, it's just that idea. And it's like, if you surround yourself by people that don't believe in God and don't believe in Jesus, you're going to start questioning spiritual warfare. You know, there is good and evil. We know that, we believe in that, you know, but you don't get to see the evil all the time.
There was like some Mormons that reached out to me.
What was that like?
Yeah, they just reached out through Facebook, and then I went on a video call with them once.
Wait, was this like, you gotta explain what that's like.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right, welcome back to the Jordan Whitrock Show. I'm your host, Jordan Whitrock. Now, I always forget this, but we do have Alex in the back. Alex, say hi.
Hi, guys.
We're not going to catch him in the 10th minute of the show. We're going to catch him early. But today we have an awesome guest. I'm really excited to talk with him about what it is to be Catholic, why he chose to be Catholic, and all of that. Not. We also have a little bit of a past based on being school rivals. But without further ado, welcome to the show, Jarrett Buchholz.
Hello.
All right, dude. Okay. I just want to, you know, there's an elephant in the room. We used to be enemies on the soccer field. And you guys always had the upper hand on us, I swear, every single year. I don't know if there was a year that we had an upper hand on you. I think we lost to you or tied you every time. And it was like the one time I remember we tied you. The score was 2-2. You guys had 2 goals and like 35 shots. Our team had 2 goals and 2 shots on goal. But so talk to me. What got you into soccer?
I played growing up. My dad was a soccer player. He raised us up growing different sports. Yep. So soccer, hockey, and baseball are the things that I played most of my life. My dad actually played college soccer and hockey at Marion. Okay. Oh, and college baseball at Fond du Lac. So
okay,
He had his good bit of experience. So he was a good coach for me growing up in both.
Well, and so I just my worst memory against you guys in soccer, because I know that's your third sport, right? Because hockey's your first sport, I'm assuming, or baseball?
Baseball.
Okay, baseball, then hockey, then soccer.
Yeah.
So you were just out there having a good time, whipping us.
Yeah.
But my freshman year. I was the only freshman on the team, and I think you guys were like looking at the roster, and you're like, okay, where can we find the weak gap in the defense? And you were like, okay, we got this freshman. All we're going to do is run at him the entire time. And no one picked up on it except for me. And I'm like, guys, I need help. Like, literally, their whole plan is just come straight at me. And we lost that game in the playoffs. But I was like, all right, cool. I think that was the only time in my soccer history I was like, bro, I can't do anything, and I'm the weak link. Yeah. I'm like, that doesn't happen to me. But, yeah, no, that was crazy. But we had some good battles on the field. I think I remember you because you played midfield, right?
Mm-hmm. We were right up against each other.
I was gonna say, like, I remember just a tall guy, just just a tree in the midfield. But it was like, dude, like if we got past like 1 or 2 you're really good players, it was like they were just running into you, and I'm like, you can only make a move on so many people before you're cooked or whatnot. But anyway,
yeah, I was decent. We had a lot of good midfielders on our team, like throughout when I was playing. A few guys that were brothers that I played with along in that time frame. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we graduated with like 22 seniors my senior year. So like,
which is crazy.
It's a lot of
my year. I think we had 3 seniors.
Yeah.
Our team was only sophomores that year. I was like, well, they'll have a good, and they ended up winning regionals. But I was like, when they were juniors or seniors, and I was like, well, good for them. But I was like, yeah, no, there was no hope for us. But all right, okay. So what we're really here for is I want to dive into your faith journey. I think what's unique about this is I'm a cradled Catholic, if that's what you want to call it. I grew up in a Catholic family, so it was like, yes, you had to decide for yourself why you wanted to be Catholic, but you had always practiced being Catholic. So it was very easy for me to be like, yeah, no, I'm going to be Catholic. Whereas you, I don't believe you were raised up Catholic. And so what was your journey like to decide like, hey, no, this is what I want. This is what I want to believe in. Like starting like when you were younger, whenever that crossed you for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I grew up going to a Reformed church.
Okay.
That's where my parents always brought us.
Yep.
We were semi-regular. So like maybe monthly, 3 times a month, but like not every weekend we were going. But in that kind of church, it's not a requirement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely like having that background was good, but at the same time, sports usually came first.
Gotcha.
So if we had like a baseball tournament or hockey tournament, we'd be there. We'd be on Sunday, not making it to church.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't really like delve deep into my faith more until my sophomore year of college.
Okay.
I started reading the Bible. I made a goal to read the whole thing in a year.
Did you start page 1 to finish? Yep. I'm stuck.
So I made it.
Stuck.
I did do it in like a year and a half.
Okay.
So it wasn't too far off.
Yeah.
But that was with 7 less books because I was reading the Protestant Bible.
You're probably reading King James or whatever
Yeah.
Okay,
so it took out some books and then. So yeah, I have some to catch up on yet. I gotta finish those.
Okay,
up. So then at that same time when I started to do that, I was playing college baseball at the time, and a friend on the team, he was Catholic, super outgoing, and Benny Young, he invited me to a Bible study, and I'd never done anything like that before, and I was wanting to get into it, so it was something that I accepted the invite, and we'd have. So I'd be going there weekly at like 9 p.m. on Wednesdays after practice.
Yeah. Okay. So when you were reading the Bible, were you just reading it? Like, where did you go at that time? Like, so like I have a lot of Christian friends, and we'll talk about religion. It's good and awesome. But like a lot of times they'll be like, well, the Bible says this, and it's like awesome. Or like they won't like the magistry or whatever, like the Pope and all that kind of stuff, but it's like, so like, who did you go to, or did you just be like, you were able to understand word for word what the Bible was saying, or did you go to someone and be like, hey, what does this verse mean? Because it was written kind of complex for no reason, like.
Yeah, I think at my time of like reading it, it wasn't so much of like trying to like decipher every word.
Okay.
And I just chugged through it.
so it was like, hey, we got to get through 3 chapters tonight.
Yeah, it was usually like 5 chapters. Like the first month I was reading like an hour and a half a day.
Okay.
And then like after that it was not as much. But
yeah. You hit Deuteronomy.
Yeah, hit
Numbers.
Deuteronomy.
That's where I hit, and I'm like, oh.
Like, and then the Kings and Chronicles are very tough to just like, because you're just hearing a bunch of
names,
names.
Yeah.
So, that at that point I was just so excited to when we could get to the New Testament. I was definitely looking forward to that.
Maybe that's why they set up the book like that too. They're like, yeah, as long as like you have this amazing, like when Jesus starts talking, that's when we hit the top of the plot. It's like, but you got to get there somehow. Yeah. Got you. Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of chugged through it in that way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was doing that Bible study, so I was getting to. Usually, our Bible studies would be more focused on the Gospels.
Okay.
And the core focus. Of the message.
Okay.
And with that, I kept doing that for that semester, and then kind of like during the summer, didn't have really anything outside of just the reading myself. And then like through that, they have the Newman Center on our Oshkosh campus. So I would go to that for the meals. On Tuesdays.
So you knew my brother way before you knew me or anything. Like, where did you meet him, or how did that happen? Like, was it at Bible study? Was it just like at the Newman Center, or? Yeah,
we weren't in the same Bible study for then. So this would have been before he was in college.
Got you. Oh, true. Yeah. So it's been sophomore.
And then He was in a different Bible study my junior year.
Yeah. Okay.
And I didn't really officially meet him until probably towards the end of that year.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Huh.
yeah, I didn't really know him much at all until my senior year when we like really started, like he was leading a Bible study.
Yeah.
I was in that and got to know each other a lot better.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's beautiful. I remember him like when he talks about you or your learning process, you were the guy with all the questions, right? In the sense of like why is this, why you like, when like at the time you're not Catholic, so you're like, hey, why do you believe in this, you know? Where at times where he's like, okay, like I don't know all the answers. He's like we're in the Bible study for a reason.
Yeah.
but I thought, like, I think he said like you took it upon yourself a lot of times to like go look for it yourself, you know? Was there a place that you tended to go to, or was it just prayerful times where you just sat praying on like a specific phrase or psalm or something?
Yeah. Touching on that, like a lot of my like conversion was kind of out of ignorance. So like my view of the church, and I didn't know much about the church. So like I didn't have an anti-Catholic like upbringing or anything like that. I was never like against Catholicism, but I was just ignorant to what it was teaching.
Yeah.
So yeah, asking questions was the way I would do that. And then talking through the priest at the Newman Center, Father Zach.
Which I hope to get him on this at some point,
Because
because I have a lot of questions. I'm like, hey, I have questions that people are asking me that I can't answer. Or it's like I'll look it up and be like, I can't phrase it that way. Like they're not gonna understand it if I phrase it that way. I'm like, Father, lead me.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't say there was anything that was like compelling me to become Catholic right away. So, not until like my senior year did I like actually start like seriously discerning becoming Catholic. Before then, I would have been watching videos like on YouTube. Like I feel like for nowadays, most people go to there to just find things. So I was finding a bunch of different videos in there to get some information. Obviously, when I didn't know like who were like the Catholic influencer, I wasn't getting like just this one like structured message, but I was getting like the Protestant side versus like the Catholic side. So like I'd see it in two different directions, and then see like where the love was coming from in that way, where it's like you could definitely tell that like there's more animosity towards Catholicism. Not that altered my decision. Like there's no, that's not why I was like getting drawn towards it. My real like conversion started happening my summer before senior year. I went to my second mass. It was on a retreat at the Jesuit retreat house in Oshkosh. So I got to learn a lot that weekend. My first retreat.
What was that retreat like? I don't think I've heard of that retreat.
What
did you guys do?
So it was through the Newman Center. We had like this leadership retreat. Well, I don't know why they invited me. I'm not even Catholic, but yeah, I was able to go there and got to talk about. Well, we'd have a holy hour and a mass every day. That's kind of normal with retreats, but it's so beautiful. And then we'd have like a session where we get to talk, and then small groups. And then we have also free time to just like get to hang out, and a lot of that was great too, because you get to have that fellowship. And I feel like that's a lot of the good things, a lot of fruits that came from being in the Newman Center. So there was my first like mass, and then I made it a goal that semester to go to every mass through the semester.
Wow.
And I like never gone to church every weekend.
Yeah, no, that's a mad, like I know there's people that are Catholic that still struggle with going to mass every weekend, or they're like, well, why do you need to, you know? And it's like, well, that's like besides the point that we're told that that's what we should do, you know? And it's like, why wouldn't you want to? I think like the three pillars, and you can correct me, but it's like we have the Bible, you know, we have the pillar, we have the Eucharist as one, right? I'm trying because I think it's because then we have the magistry, which is the other in tradition. So I don't know if
I think the Eucharist isn't one of the pillars,
Okay.
but like obviously that's Jesus. So
yeah, and
it
yeah,
makes
yep,
it,
mhm.
yeah. So I think it's the magistrate,
Yep.
the tradition,
Tradition.
and Bible.
Okay.
So those are like
Yeah,
the three pillars of the church.
Yep.
And they're able to give us the Eucharist.
Yes, and yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, they give us the Eucharist. Yeah, but just like that idea of like when you realize that the Eucharist is Jesus, and by like consuming him, you have the Spirit within you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, why would you give up that opportunity to at least go once a week? And
Mm-hmm.
they offer it every day. You know, it's like
Yeah.
you know, which I think that's where I'm at, where I'm struggling, is like how do you find that time during the week to go more than just once?
Yeah.
You know. Besides like when you're singing at a funeral, so then you get to go to
Yeah,
mass, you know.
it's
But
definitely tough with like work schedules to like make sure you can figure it out. Like
Mm-hmm.
finding one after, one in the morning if you're working later.
yeah,
But definitely like a goal of mine to make it like 2 or 3 times a week.
yep,
But yeah, touching on that with the like people not wanting to go every week,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's just like a decision that you have to end up making up for yourself.
yeah,
So like getting like dragged to church with your parents, like you're not
yeah.
you're not having that.
That's the critic Catholic. Yep, yep.
Well,
That's it.
yeah,
and I mean,
in any denomination,
yeah,
but
same, yeah. And then you make that decision. And for me, that was my confirmation. Was when it's like up to that point, it's always been the expectation through the family, you know,
Mm-hmm.
tradition of going to mass, and then it was. But ironically, it was then that I decided I'm like, no, this is like I want this, and so I'm gonna have to make an effort on my own because I'm not gonna be with my parents. You know, my parents are gonna be around your whole life. You know, and do you really want your parents to still tell you to go to church? You know, and
Yeah.
so it's like that point. That's where I made my decision. That I'm like, no, this is the truth. I want to believe it. I still struggle with it. You know, just there's things that you still struggle with. We're human after the fall, but it's just that that was like my wake up moment to continuing. But you were saying that that was what you were trying to go to mass once a week, right?
Yep.
At that point, and it's not as a non-Catholic, which is amazing.
and yeah, that was my goal.
Yep.
Not realizing that goal would like just change me and like
Yeah.
and see
How did it change you?
the mystery in that. I guess just like seeing there's a lot of formation in that. Father Zach's homilies are really
Yeah.
great. So
Yeah.
getting to learn a lot.
Yep.
So that was good. And then also like getting to witness something that was bigger than yourself. Because in my church or other churches that I've gone to that were Protestant, evangelical churches,
Yep.
it's a lot of just like preaching and then some songs and worship. And that's
Yeah.
not that that's bad. But when you don't have the Eucharist there, it makes it feel a lot emptier.
Gotcha.
So like getting drawn to that mystery and not feeling like the church is trying to cater to me
Yeah.
either.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember at that first retreat, Father Zach talked about the Eucharist as a wedding. So like every time that you're going to receive the body and blood, soul and divinity of Christ, you are getting you're unifying yourself with him. So that's where it's like it was such a weird like concept.
Yeah.
Like that was probably the one thing that like, wow, that doesn't like feel right. Like
Yeah.
the first time you hear it. But definitely like truth in that and the mystery of how it turns from the bread into the body of Christ.
There's a cool YouTube video about like it's like what goes on during mass, like the things that you can see and can't see, you know, and it's like when the priest is holding that up of like it actually, like I think like the one scene that really sticks with me is obviously on the altar there's Jesus on the crucifixion, right? And as he's holding, like for me it's the chalice, when he's holding the chalice there's like a blood that drops from his foot from where he was like nailed on the cross, and it's like that's what changes it from the wine to the blood.
There's some really great imagery with that.
But like to me, that's what gets me to be like, oh, or like when the angels are in the heaven, like when the priest is like, when that happens, when we bring the gifts down and stuff like that. It's like things like that where it's like you don't get to see that in mass because we're human, but you have to know that that's what's happening in this moment. You have to be able to see beyond that,
Yeah, there's so much like truth out there that we don't even know about because we can only see the physical reality, whereas like all these spiritual things that we can't see.
Well, and it goes both ways. Spiritual warfare, there is good and evil. We know that, we believe in that, but you don't get to see the evil all the time, and that can be part of the problem, and with certain people and whatnot, and idolizing certain things,
and it becomes like a lackadaisical thing too, where the devil tries to leave you and like make you feel comfortable, so that you don't realize that the sin that you're in, and the desperate need of help that you're in.
Okay, so you go to mass and you're doing that, and Father Zach's homilies are striking a tune in you. What happens next?
So there was probably November was the first time like I was just like, yeah, I'm open to becoming Catholic. So I'm gonna start, so I'm getting towards the end of my college days.
Yeah.
And I've been going to the Newman Center for two years at this point.
Okay.
And I've just really enjoyed like having the community to be around that's gonna to push me to be closer to God.
Yep.
Because in the end, that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
Is your relationship with God. So I knew that in some way I'd have to be associated with the church to have fellowship and to stir that relationship. Because you can't do it on your own. So I was like, I got to figure out what church I'm going to be part of.
Yeah. At that point, are you looking at other churches, talking to other Christians or whatnot? I know you said you've been at the Newman Center for probably like 2 years or a year and a half or whatever that is at that point. Was there ever thought from you to be like, should I check out this Protestant, or?
Yeah, I can't say there was too many things like pulling me in another direction.
Yeah.
There was like some Mormons that reached out to me.
What was that like?
Yeah, they just reached out through Facebook, and then I went on a video call with them once.
Wait, was this like? Okay, you gotta explain what that's like.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So this would have been during like that fall of senior year of college.
Yeah.
And they're just evangelizing like they would. They're going door to door, or like in this case,
Zoom call.
Zoom call, yeah. So I give them that time. Like I didn't know like right away that they're Mormon, but I should have known because they have the white shirt and the black tie.
Yep. Okay.
So yeah, we had a conversation about that, and like it just felt like they were trying to sell me something. Yeah. And like they were trying to get me to read like the book of Joseph Smith.
Yeah, their third book or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, that's great. I'm gonna finish reading the Bible first, and then maybe I'll come back to that. I never came back to it.
Yeah, then you finished the Bible, you're like, no, this is where it ends. We don't need this Joseph guy. Yeah. Exactly. I never really knew the story of the like Mormons. And I never really done research, so you don't take this, if you're watching, like don't take this to heart and that this is truth or whatever. But I did see the Book of Mormon musical, and like it's a comedic play off of like the Mormons or whatever, but I was like, I never knew that obviously getting through the BS of what the musical's comedic thing was. It was like, I didn't realize like that's kind of what the Mormons kind of idea of faith was, which was kind of interesting. Just like another branch from the Catholic faith, it's like just interesting to see how that goes. But that's crazy that they reached out to you. Yeah. I don't think I'd have the balls to like go on a Zoom call with them.
Yeah, I mean, I was pursuing different things, so I was more open to things. Yep. I'm glad knowing now that like Mormons aren't Christians, so it's like, it's good to know that like I never went that path. Yep. Because they don't believe in the Trinity as we do. Yep. But yeah, that was an experience for sure.
Okay. So you get off the Zoom call, you're like, okay, maybe not, and then you have to make the decision of what you're gonna choose to follow, you know, in that standpoint. How do you come to that decision? Was there like a moment where you were sitting in prayer, or just like you met someone and you're like, okay, no, like my mind's made up, like, yes, this is what I want, kind of thing?
I don't think there was like a specific moment where I was just
Yep.
like, yeah, I'm becoming Catholic.
Okay.
I know I knew before like the start of the next year. Like it was in December. I had my mind made up. But it wasn't like I didn't make it public right away.
Yeah.
And that was before I went to my first C conference.
Oh, because then Seek would have been that January.
Yeah, that January in St. Louis, and that was really great. Like great experience, and I was just it was cool to see like the community that everybody brought together.
Yeah.
And then with that, the mass was still the same. It wasn't like obviously there's always differences and like different ways. Like there's some things that are different between different churches. And
I mean, like the biggest difference that I see is like diocese is like, what kind of way do you sing the song? It's like it's like the words mean everything the same. Everything's the same. Words are the same. It's just like, oh, the melody is different because that's what our bishops wanted. You know, it's like, other than that, everything is for the most part the same. You know,
the mass is the mass.
Yeah.
Like no matter how well or bad you think that the priest does,
the sermon was,
or like however the service goes, or if you don't like it or not, it's still a perfect sacrifice as long as the priest does what the church has prescribed for him to say and to consecrate the host. Then it's a perfect mass.
Yeah.
So to find joy in that, and that was a cool thing to see after like I already made my decision at that point. So like I was saying, there was no like set in stone, like this is reason I'm in.
Come to Jesus moment, as some might say, you know.
At some point you got to make a decision though. And there were still things, you can't
be on the fence.
There were still things that I didn't fully understand. Don't get me wrong. But when you see something that you believe is true, you go after it, and then you figure out the rest after. And I felt like after I made that decision, I was a lot more studious.
Gotcha. To learning.
Because
I would say you're very knowledgeable. I would say you're more knowledgeable than me. Like especially like with biblical terms and like oh, but actually it says here Bible verse, and this is what that means. You know, I would say like that's one of your strong suits, and I think that's because of the hard work you put into truly understanding the faith. And I would say that's motivation for me in like my journey, and like looking at you or someone else who's like new to the faith and seeing your love and desire. Because I think you just get used to going through the motions, or lack of a better word, where it's like I know this is amazing, I know this is awesome, and then to see like someone new be like, do you see how awesome this is? And it's like, yeah, I've been here the whole time, but they're like, no, it's that amazing, and you're like, oh yeah, it is amazing. Like I had to get that fog out of me, you know. And so like that's like uplifting to people, you know, and gets people back on the saddle, ready to go, you know. And so, but seeing that part of your journey was awesome. I have a question, like, what's the so you made the decision. What's the process to becoming confirmed and all that kind of stuff? You know, it's like for me, it was like you had CCD religious ed for 18, 17 years, and then it was like you did all the steps and learning that way. But for you, what were your things that you had to do?
It's a similar process.
Yeah.
We have RCIA is what we had.
Okay.
OCIA could be called another diocese.
Gotcha. Yep.
But we basically, Father Zach would have us sit down and we'd read the catechism. Okay. And then whenever we'd have questions about what he was talking about, we'd bring them up.
Okay. Was there a question that you brought up that you're like you couldn't, you're like, you got to explain this to me because like it don't be making sense, you know?
There's definitely questions I had, but they were minor things.
Do you have like an example of something like that, you know?
Here's one that he couldn't answer.
Okay, yeah.
So we can't say the Lord's name in vain, right?
Yep.
So I asked him, well, what about people that name their sons or Jesus.
Yeah.
Like that's very common in the Caribbean or
Yep.
Latin areas. So in that case, you're gonna end up like you can't do it. So like you're gonna scold your child. You're gonna say that. I think I know the answer. He never gave it, but I'm guessing that it's more along the lines that like the intent wasn't to like say the Lord's name in vain. It was this like Lord knows your heart. But
yeah, that's a crazy to think about, like, well, and like you said, like that's a different part of the world. That's a common name, than like where we're from, and so it's like you never think about something like that, or like that idea of like Jesus and like how is that spelled? Really, is that similar? But it's not saying Jesus or being spelled like saying it that way, but it's spelled similar or is it's like that's yeah. I just think of that one Vine where like the girl comes on the door and she's holding like the Bible and she's like, I'm in love with Jesus, and he's like, Jesus. And he like runs over to his friend. He's like, hey, hey,
I remember that one.
And throws the rake or whatever. I'm like, that one is so good. But yeah, no, that's okay. So you go through the catechism. You're getting questions like that either answered, or you're laughing because you know what the answer is, and you're just being a little sarcastic or whatever. So then, what's the next thing that happens? Is it baptism? Does that all happen at the same time, or?
See, I was already baptized.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
gotcha.
A valid baptism in the Catholic Church is all you need to do is have the means and what was the other one? I can't remember the word for it, but basically you have to have it's means and matter.
Okay.
So the matter is water and baptism.
Gotcha.
And then the means is what you say. So I baptize you in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Yep.
So if you do that and then pour water over them, that's a valid baptism.
Gotcha.
So I could theoretically baptize anyone.
Gotcha.
Like in emergency cases.
Yeah.
Like it's better to go through church, and that's what we want. But like in the case where you have a son that's being born.
Yeah.
And he's gonna die. Mm-hmm. You can do an emergency baptism on him.
Well, and that that's interesting because I've always thought that it had to be a priest or whatever, but I heard that recently that it was like I think or someone was like, oh, like I was Christian, but then like my baptism was good, or like it counted towards that. But also the same thing as like if their pastor was the one that did their baptism or whatever that is, it's not the same, but equivalent to like if you and I did it kind of thing, because we're not at this point like a priest or whatnot, or like religious life that way,
Yeah. And there's a different, we're all priests. Whereas like the one true priest is Jesus.
Yep.
And then you have your priests of the church, and then you have your priests that are just laymen.
Okay.
And they all serve a purpose. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the cooler things that I got to hear in my first C conference when they're talking about that, where it's like we all have a purpose in God's plan. Yep. So yeah, the things like that you're able to do. Obviously, you want to go through the church because you're docile to her teaching. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was baptism. Confirmation was the only thing I needed to do.
Okay. So
for that process, we went through, I believe, there's 3 or 4 scrutinies.
Got you. And what are those? If you remember. Throwing you on the spot.
From what I remember, there was laying on of the hands. And then, so basically during the Mass, the priest would lay on the hands and bless you. Mm-hmm. And there would be stories that go with these scrutinies. So I know one was the woman at the well.
Yep. Okay.
I can't remember the other ones, and I'd probably have to brush up on the teaching of why we do the scrutinies.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it has to do something along the lines of just knowing that you're truly in it.
Yeah.
Like you want this. But also at the same time, like wanting to to give you the graces that the Lord wants for you.
Hmm.
So yeah, then confirmation came in April.
Okay. Yeah. Because that's like with that season, or at least is it the Green Bay Diocese that has like that's their season of like allowing, or like most people do all of their studies, get preparation for when they're confirmed into the church or whatever. And so it's like that Easter.
Yeah. It's usually on Easter.
I think it's on Easter. Yeah. That like that's when all that stuff happens, and then you get confirmed in the faith and whatnot. And
yeah, I say usually Easter because I actually was confirmed on Divine Mercy Sunday.
Okay.
So Father Zach had got permission to do it on Divine Mercy Sunday because the spring break was the week before, so nobody would have been there to like support us. All the people that like have been in our lives, and they want. So to accommodate that, we were able to do it a week later.
So did he have to go to the bishop then? And does that go to some like, or is it just
no? The bishop can make that call.
Okay. Yep.
So that's. It is cool, the church hierarchy where it has the bishop. So it goes priest, bishop, archbishop, and then cardinal, pope. Or is there another tier between?
I don't know if there. It's ironic because I think like, especially because we live in America, so we're not at the Vatican. We don't see it often, and so it's like for us, it's like we listen to the bishop. The bishop is kind of what tells us, but we know that the bishop takes his call from the cardinal and then from the pope. So it's like in a turn, it comes down that way, you know? But it's like ironic because it's like, as you say that too, it's like, I'm like, I don't know if like how that, or it's like that idea of like when a new pope gets chosen, like,
that's
like, that's not intense, but that's just like, they go into a room and figure it out, you know? It's like, but yeah, no. Okay. So you get the call and you're able to do it on Divine Mercy. That Sunday, and then what happens, or what was that service like?
That service was great. I feel like throughout that time, like getting to like always go to those masses, but then not receive God because like you're not Catholic, you can't receive.
Yep.
So I would like, my mouth would actually like water because like just wanting it that much. The desire, yeah. So it was just super nice when it was actually came to fruition. And then like having the people around me that were there, my parents and family were there to support me. Even though they don't fully agree with the Catholic Church, but I feel like that's something I'd hope for them somewhere to point down the line. Yeah.
Well, I think too, as they get to see you blossom and be who you are, you look at who's around you, you know, like that's the biggest thing is like, they'll ask you like, who are you surrounding yourself by? You know, if you're surrounding yourself by like non-Catholics, for an example, or just like, let's go different. Like if you surround yourself by people using drugs, there's a good chance you might find yourself doing drugs. You know, it's just that idea. And it's like, if you surround yourself by people that don't believe in God and don't believe in Jesus, you're going to start questioning stuff if you don't have that other space that like is the place that fills your bucket, you know, and whatnot. And so I feel like that you're going to be someone like that in their life where they see you and see how you lead your life, you know, and it's going to, and it's like, yeah, I want to do what Jarrett's doing, you know, and like that whole thing. But yeah, no, that's a beautiful story. Okay. So we are in Bible study together right now. And we did the Jeopardy. That's what it was. And you cooked us all in Jeopardy on that one. Because it was just like, what were we were learning?
We were learning about St. Paul. Actually.
Oh, that was the Corinthians, right?
We were talking, Corinthians was our Bible study.
Yep.
And we were talking about St. Paul, who was actually my confirmation saint.
Oh, why did you choose him?
So yeah, going through the letters. Yep. Seeing that, I feel like, okay, so it was kind of a little bit more like trying to avoid like, see, there's like saints of certain things.
Yeah.
So like
mine is Saint Genesis, and he's the saint of acting.
Yeah, the patron saint of whatever. And I didn't want to. So like patron saint of athletes or like something like that. Like I didn't want to do something like that. It just felt like I wanted to go deeper, and St. Paul like led me in his writings so much that I felt like that was the way to go.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Huh. That's it's interesting you say that, because obviously we started the podcast talking about sports, and one thing that struck me and was like sports was what led my life for a long time, and then eventually you had to make that choice of like, I can still do sports. Like, that's not like I'm giving it up, but it's like, hey, what comes first? Yeah, and I think that was something that it sounded like you wrestled with a little bit until you made that decision. But I think that follows in your decision of choosing your saint. Of like, I could have chose the saint of baseball or whatever that would be, and it's like, no, I wanted to choose the one that meant more to me and what led me in my journey of faith, because that's what's most important to me, and I think that like answers that question, for people.
Definitely. And I love sports, like anything with like a ball being active
or a puck.
Yeah. Like I played the 3 sports all throughout growing up, but I love playing like volleyball, basketball, pickleball.
Yep.
Anything to get me active. I'm
you're a competitive person.
Yeah, I'm very competitive. Very competitive. Yep.
I have that competitiveness. See, but my knees are bad. So like, I have this competitive nature, and so I have to make the decision like, hey, are we going to be competitive in this moment, or we're not going to be competitive in this moment? But it's really hard for me, because I'll be like, yeah, we're not going to be competitive. But then like slowly it just starts eating at me. And it's like I have to wear a knee brace so my knees will pop out and like whatnot. And then I have to like slam the patella back in place or whatever.
Shoot.
And so it's like, there's been a couple moments, like the one I could think of is like the music department was doing kickball tournament or whatever. And at first I was, no, that's a lie. I knew the whole time I was going to go all in. and we like crushed the first round. It's the second round. I hit a bomb. Like, I'm running the bases and I'm coming down third base, and I hit it. My left knee is the worst. I hit the base with my left, but all my weight was on it. And I was turning, and when I turn, that's when it slips out. Like, that thing, I think that has to be the most brutal, like the kneecap sliding and flipping that I've ever felt. And I literally like, it's still a game. I don't know. I didn't get up. I was going to say, I think I got up and hobbled. No, I think that one took me down. But my dumbass, for lack of a better word, I was like, nah, like, we're not losing. Like, we got to the finals with that like game, and I was like, I ran to my car, put my knee braces on. We literally, like, I had the game-saving catch, and then we decided just, like, we're going to, like, it's a tie or whatever, because it was, like, getting late or whatever. But that next morning, I think I burst a water socket in my knee. My knee was like this, just like looking at it like, what? And it took like a week, and I had to use crutches because I couldn't bend my knee. So like stairs, couldn't do stairs because like my leg was literally straight like a board because it wouldn't bend. But yeah, that was my, like, that's what happens if I get competitive and I decide not to be competitive. So it's like I have to make the decision. I have to have my knee braces if I'm going to be competitive.
Gotcha.
But well, and then one time that you were like, hey, do you want to come to a hockey game? And then, but at first I thought, I read it as, hey, do you want to come play in a game? Or you said game, and then I found out it was hockey. I'm like, bro, I'm like,
never skated.
Ice skates. Yeah. I'm like, I'm okay at skating. Probably haven't done it in a year and a half, so now I'm bad at it again. Yep. I'm like, that ain't where. I'm like, my knees, that ain't where. You're like, no, dude, like, to come watch or whatever. I'm like, oh, like, yeah, that makes more sense. But I had to laugh because I was like, in my brain, I'm like, what would I do if I had to play a hockey game? Like, just like, because then like leads your brain to like, what would you do in that moment? I'm like, I don't know.
I do think it's a little better on your knees.
Really? Why?
I just feel like you're not like cutting and turning a bunch.
Because you're gliding.
Yeah,
but what about the guy who just takes your leg out?
I mean, it'd be illegal to go for someone's legs.
Okay.
So, right. I mean, if they did, like, it could happen. Like, anything worth doing is going to
in a fight or flight moment, and a guy's staring at me, and I just see him go, boom, and his gloves are off. I'm just skating the other way. Yeah. He's going to have to catch me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Were you a fighter in the rink, or were you always the guy that like pushed it to the max and then you like backed off because you're like, I don't want to get into the fight?
Yeah, I definitely like. I would have it in me to do that, but
yeah,
I just like I don't get into that stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's very fruitful to do, and
yeah,
why go home bloody and beaten?
Yeah,
especially the hands. Like you're hitting them helmet.
Yeah,
Like, what are you guys thinking of doing? Like, does that really hurt the other guy?
Or just your knuckles.
Exactly.
Okay, wait. Did you guys ever play Amro in soccer?
No.
Oh, okay. I've never been I'm very calm and collective in like high intensity. Like I was always the guy that was yelling at my other captains, being like, "Hey, shut up!" Like the ref called it. You're not gonna get him to overturn it. We don't have replay. Let's be real here. Like you can yell at him all you want, but he's just gonna get like irritated at you and give you like one more chance, and he's gonna throw you out. But one game, it was the Berlin tournament, and we were playing against Amro, and there was one guy on the team. He kept hooking my arm, and like ridiculously, and like the ref was calling it, but he hooked me and like tackled me basically to the ground, and I ended up on top of him, and I got up, and I'm like, and I was fuming, like the parents going crazy, like the whole thing, and I'm like, I was this close to like stomping on him where you don't want to be stomped because that's how we fell up, but I was like, in that moment I was like, no. It is not worth it. I'm like, I'm probably going to get a red card again. Yeah. He ended up getting a red card and got kicked out or whatever. But I was like, that was, I think, the closest I've ever been to like, I'm like, let's throw. Like, I'm ready to throw hands. Like, you've got me this pissed off, which has never happened to me before. And I was like, yeah, that was a hot game. But
speaking about like stomping on people, I did step on somebody's hand back in the day.
In soccer? Or
in soccer, yeah.
On purpose?
Oh yeah.
Oh, what was the guy doing to get you to do that?
Oh, he was just like, I'm very intense. So like, in soccer, I was probably my worst.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that was like.
Well, it's right before hockey season. You've got all this built up to.
Well, hockey, you could just light somebody up. Yeah. Soccer it would get me. So like, I would definitely be the guy bumping people around, and then. Yeah, like people just illegally doing things. So I was not for like going to like away from the rules.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like when you're like grabbing at people and then like tripping them.
Was there a team for you guys that you were like, we hate this team, or just like this team always? Not that they got the better of us, but just like for us, I think there's a couple of teams, but I think most of it was like we're going to a pond. It's gonna be a physical, dirty game. That's just what it is.
We had a big team. Like our team, like overall, was just size was a lot of hockey
you had
players.
3 teams, like freshman, JV, and then like we got. I think my senior year we had a JV team, but before that and after that, like we didn't really have like a solid JV team. It was always like we're running 9 guys and not even enough for 11, you know. But was there that team for you that got you?
I would say like Plymouth and KML would usually get the better of us. Like they're good. Senior year we should have beat Plymouth, but it didn't work out that way.
Dude, I was mad. Okay, so our side. Okay, I want to get your side of the story, and I'm gonna tell you our side of the story of like that playoff whole bracket system of how that went down. So, what place did you guys end up in playoffs? Because you had them home regional.
Yeah, we were probably like one of the top seeds.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You had to been. Yeah.
The truth is, I never even looked at that bracket. Whoever we were playing next is who we were playing next.
Yeah. Well, I never looked at it until after, or like obviously your coach isn't going to tell you his reasons as why things are until after the season, you know, kind of thing. And so I was just curious, was there any like funny or like the coach, which was your dad a coach at the time?
My dad was a coach.
Yep.
So he coached me in hockey and soccer.
Okay. Did he ever tell you like why it got split up or why he got the spot he got? Or was it just like, hey, this is our spot. These are the teams we're going to play.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the things you can like figure out on your own.
Yeah.
I think he did come back a few times, and throughout the 4 years, just being like, wow, we got screwed. Like we should have been a higher up.
Screwed. Yeah.
I remember I don't know if it was my freshman or sophomore year.
Okay.
We ended up having to go down to like Milwaukee to play this team of like, and we were like we were like one of the top teams in conference.
Yep.
And I think we were in a bad sectional. Like it was a tough sectional.
Yeah.
But we were like over 500 team, and then we have to go down there for our second game. Like usually you're gonna get 2 home games if you're pretty good. Yep. But yeah, we had to go down there.
Probably some St. Augustus. It's always like a private.
It might have been that. I can't remember. It was a private school for sure.
Yeah.
Wait, was it a private school? I don't know, but
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the team was a bunch of like they're Mexicans. So like they were beating us, like for sure.
Yeah, they had the finesse, yeah. Okay, so Who did you guys play your first round of your senior year? Do you remember?
No clue.
Okay, because I don't remember who you guys played, because it was Plymouth and Plymouth and Ripon at the time were like ranked very similar.
Okay.
And so there was conversations between both coaches on where they were gonna like go or whatever. And so that's why my story is like that's crazy. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know if there was anything, because then you guys okay, so I'll tell my story, because then we can get to yours. Because my senior year was the first year Ripon ever had a home playoff game.
Okay.
Never had a home playoff game. And so that was like huge. We basically got to choose who we wanted to have home. Either we would have Wild Rose, whatever that team, that like 3 schools together out like more west of Wisconsin, or it was Xavier. But if we did Wild Rose, we'd end up in your conference, and assuming we beat them, because we beat them earlier in the year, we'd go play you guys home. Which our coach was like, I don't want to play Waupun again. Just like, we most likely know what that route's going to be like, right? Mm-hmm. And the other option was play Xavier home and then go play Notre Dame, which he was like in his brain, I'm speaking for him. He never said this, but he was like, it's like, okay, at least Xavier, we could beat him because we have a better record, and maybe we'll get our butts kicked to Notre Dame, but that's just different competition than playing the conference for the third time, And so we're like, okay, like, cool. Like, I guess we're like, I was sad because I was like, well, even if we lost to Waupun, because we lost and tied to you guys that year. So like, even if we lost to them and they won the regional or whatever, that I was like, at least I know we could beat the other team. Xavier the year before beat us. And the thing with Xavier is they're a private school, and they always had foreign players on their team. Mm-hmm. So what their story was and why they were even that low in the bracket was at the beginning of the year, they lost all of their games. Halfway through the year, they got 6 foreign exchange students. Yep. Mm-hmm. So after that, they literally won out. So they were at that, like, whatever, that not bottom of the record where they're playing top, but they're like middle bottom. So we're playing us where we're middle top or whatever. And Plymouth knew that. I don't think our coach knew that they got that or whatever. And I'm assuming Plymouth was like, I think we might be able to beat Waupun or whatever that. You guys probably had close matches that year. And so we play Xavier, and I'm like, as we start the game, and it's like we're already like kind of pushing back on D, and I'm like, oh, this is like something's up. I'm like, what we thought was gonna happen isn't what's happening. I think we lost like 3-0 to them, and I'm like, bro, like, and then it was like they're like 6 of them were speaking different languages, and I'm like, all right. And then I found that out, and I was like, all right, cool. So we lost that game, but then Plymouth ended up beating Wild Rose, and then goes to Waupun for that,
and then ties
and that's
us.
the regional game, right?
Yeah. We probably outshot them like 40-1.
So break down what that game was like. I think I was gonna go to it, and then I obviously didn't. But what was like, how did that game? Obviously, I know how it ends, but we don't have to say what it is. We can leave it for the tension of the podcast. But like, what was the game like leading up to the ending?
So we played them the year before.
Yep.
And we should have beat them in our junior year.
In playoffs?
In playoffs in Plymouth. We were up, I think, like 2-1.
Okay.
With less than a minute left. And this game sucked. It was like snowing and like windy. Okay. But we were beating them.
Yep.
And then there's like 90 seconds left. And then they score a goal. And then they score one right at the start of OT. And then we're just like, the team's just out of it at that point.
Yeah. Okay. So that's your junior year.
Yeah, junior year.
Okay. So now you're coming to senior year.
Senior year.
They're coming to your house.
We beat them our senior year. Like, we're a better team.
Yep.
And it shows in the game. We dominated the possession. Yep. They basically packed the box type of thing.
Okay, yeah.
I think we scored 1 goal.
Yep.
And then they had a free kick at our they scored on a free kick from our bench. Like right on the sideline.
Who took it? Was it the
It was their curly head guy.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So it made sense he was going to score it, but like it shouldn't happen from there, and the call shouldn't even gone their way. Like their guy fouled our guy in first place.
Okay.
So like the way that played out was not good, and then
So when did that go? Is that like halfway through the second or?
Yeah, probably like halfway through the second.
Yeah.
I mean, we still could have scored another one, but
okay, so then you go into overtime, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we just kind of just dominated the whole game, and we just weren't able to score.
Couldn't capitalize on the opportunities. Okay, so then you guys get through overtime, and you go. It's still tied up 1-1, and you go to penalty shootouts. So what happens in penalty shootouts?
I'm the first one.
Oh, okay, okay.
Honestly, I'm
was
not
that
a
like
great scorer.
Is that like how it always was? Like you had your order. Like Jarrett's always gonna be one, and
that was our first shootout of the year.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
got you.
So we didn't practice this in practice at all. Like we're on the fly here.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I go first, and I hit the post. It was tough. Post out.
Hey, if it makes you feel better, we had a penalty shootout for that Berlin tournament against that team, and mine went off the post as well, and we ended up losing by 1. But okay, continue.
Yeah, it was. I think they beat us in 4 shots. So like mine might not have made a difference, but it still was like sucky to start it off that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely a tough matchup.
And then obviously they make theirs, and then they go on. And that was for the regional plaque, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That would have been the regional final.
I think I saw a picture of them all holding it on the pond field or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think because they were top heavy on their team. Like where I would say your team was like everyone's good. Like there's no weakness for the most part. Their team was very top. Like they had 4 really good players, and it was like if you shut down their 4 players, you could find a weakness somehow. You know,
well, they definitely their one midfielder was really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, basically, I think he was like a skills like champion or something. Like like
he was really
just dribble
good.
like in the air. Like he like won competitions for that, which I was like, okay.
And so like in those type of games where we were playing a team that we knew one guy was really good, I would be on him the whole time.
Okay.
So like freshman, sophomore year, whatever, I'm literally right on guys.
Yeah.
If we know that they got one solid guy, I'm just marking them the whole game.
Yeah. I think so what was nice was it was me and my buddy Tyler. We were like our top scorers. So there was never like a moment where there was one. But early on in the season when we played, ironically, Wild Rose or whatever, that was the only game where audibly the other players were like, oh, yeah, no, like our coach told us that me and Jim Bob or whatever, like our only job is to just follow you the entire game. And I'm like, bro, I'm like, why? I'm not like, it's not like I'm not in the leaderboard of the state for like 100 goals. It's like, nah, bro, like I got like, I do have the most goals, but like not by that much or whatever. And then of course the rest of our team monopolizes on that or whatever and scores or whatever. But I was like, that was the weirdest experience because I was like, it wasn't like one guy trailing you, which we did on other teams. It was like,
the whole team.
It was like I was a plane and I had 2 fighters on each side of me. It was like I barely touched the ball that game, which like obviously that's what their goal was, to take me out of it. But then it was like you realize now it's like 10-on-9 and like we have other good players on our team. It's like if it was just me, like I'd get it, but it's like so then they mopped him up on that or whatever. And the best part was like one of the guys was like, oh. Not it was one it was like their striker was like, oh, we've got a college scout coming to our game or whatever, like it's a big deal. And then like I think we beat them like 3-1 or something like that, or it was like 3-2 because like our coach pulled all the starters out like with the 80 minutes left in the game or whatever. But I was like that's just like weird mentality to be like Division 3 and being like, we got them scouts coming. They're watching us today.
I'm sorry if you're not like leading the state in points, like,
or just like if you're not D1 or D2, like I can't like. And we had people for other sports go big, you know, and whatnot for both schools. But it's like again, if you're not like the guy for the state in D3,
exactly,
it's like. Yep. Yeah, like cool. Like I mean, don't get me wrong, winning state or something like that's a big deal. But like, realize there's like a couple more levels ahead of you. You know,
you gotta work your butt off. You gotta work your butt off if you want to be.
Although I do say D3, you can get away with having one really good guy in your team. You know, like that is
especially in basketball where it's like it's 5 guys. It's kind of like the NBA too, though. Like you got that one guy that's just a stud.
We had. So my freshman year, our basketball team went to state or whatever, and we lost to Xavier. And the whole time, like the media and everything was like, "Oh, it's unfortunate these teams are meeting like right before the final for state because these should be the 2 teams that go on or whatever." And I remember watching the the other game before us, and it's literally they just have a 7-foot guy built like a tank, and they would just give it to him, and he would go like this, and the other team were all like 5'11". So, like, their team was really good because they were probably really good shooters, fast, you know? Yeah. But, like, if you ain't hitting your threes, that's gonna beat you all day.
Yeah.
And so it was like
he's gonna out-rebound
so it was
you.
like that team destroyed them, and then it was like Xavier knocked us off, and so then Xavier played them and then just demolished them because it was like, well, let's just not let the big guy score, and then the team fell apart. And I just was like, oh, it's so unfortunate.
Double
that, like,
cover.
Yeah, but yeah, no, sports in high school are, and like it's funny. Like my dad always said, he was like, he's like, sports are for high school, like competitive wise. He's like, you can obviously do sports like pickleball or whatever, like for fun, or like a rec league or whatever. That's like low. But he's like, sports can't control your life unless you're a professional athlete. In that sense, where it's like, but it's like. He was saying that knowing that we weren't going to be professional athletes, or just like, especially with my knees. Once I found out, like, the doctor was like, if you were my son, I would never let you play another sport sophomore year of high school. And I'm like, okay, but like, I got 2 more years here. Like, I'm probably going to play them because I know soccer ain't going to be my whole life.
And you stopped playing basketball at that point, right? Or
basketball, I stopped in 7th, going into 8th grade year. I stopped because my dad was like, hey, you got to decide, because at that point, my team knew that I was like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So like I was still starting on the team, but the problem was I also was in the musicals.
Okay.
And so then it was just that split time between both.
Full high
and
school
so
musical
like
type stuff.
Yeah, but it was a lie because I had to choose. my dad's like, well, either you're just gonna keep getting chorus, which is totally fine, because he was the one that like told me I should do it, or like he challenged me to do it my 6th grade year. But the other thing was like the culture of basketball at that time was just very toxic.
Okay.
In the sense of like it was the coach's favorite kid, like his kid. The coach had his kid. Everything went to him, and I was like, you know what, like if I had to choose, I'm gonna go musical because I can still be the lead, be the guy, whatever that is. But there's not that toxicity of like, hey, your job is just to rebound. And it's like, dude, I came from Green Bay where like the travel team for Green Bay, D1 travel team, wanted me to play for them because of the like because they're like, you could start on our team. Like you wouldn't be on the B team, you'd be on the A team. Like all my friends and it's like then going to Ripon D3 and then being like, oh, like you're barely good enough to like shoot. And I'm like like that was like a shell shock for me, and I was like, fair enough, like you got to earn your way. But it's like, okay, I felt like I did everything in my power to earn my way onto that team.
What are you 6'2", 6'3"?
No, now I am, but back then I would have been like the tallest kid, so I'd always played center or point guard, and whether it be like I had the best ball handling, so then by default, or it was like, put me in the post and I had it. So my thing was, the problem too was that like I like was pretty tall as a kid, but like I didn't have that growth spurt where like all of a sudden you hit 6'3", and all the people on the team started having that growth spurt, and I stayed around like 6 foot. So it was tough for them to put me in center, but because I had done that my whole life, I had all the skills as a center, so I could still beat every guy on the post. And so I know the coach like struggled with that. He's like, damn, like how do we still put this like 6 foot kid in that, or whatever that would be equivalent to at that time. But it's like, if we put the other guy who is taller, it's like he doesn't have the skill that he has. So like I know there was turmoil there, and I was like, okay, like I'm done. I'm like, that's not for me. But yeah, so that was the end of my basketball career. But then the next year I got the lead in the musical, so I was like, okay, that was a good turn. It was like, and
freshman year lead.
No, it was 8th grade. So, but because all the coaches, which were the gym teachers at the time or whatever teachers, they're like, Jordan, come out for like, what do you mean you're not playing? Because they were excited because they were like, oh, we're finally gonna get you to play. And I was like, no, I'm done. Like I hated my traveling team that 7th grade year. I'm like, I'm good. I'm done. Like my dad didn't let me quit, which I'm thankful for. There's part of that like where you can quit mid-season and then you don't feel that accomplishment, or that you got through it, that you didn't overcome that struggle. But he made me, and I was, but I think at this point he too was like, oh, why'd I make this kid finish up? But yeah, no, I don't know. Did you have any crazy stories with like traveling sports, like toxicity within teams or whatnot, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's always that. Like you have like people saying like that you're playing because your parents, like your dad's a coach, or but yeah, I feel like my parents guarded me from that a lot. Okay. So it didn't come to me too much.
Well, it's nice that your dad coached you. So like my dad coached me all the way through, but then when we moved to Ripon, they were like, oh, we don't need another coach. And so my dad had always coached me. And he was the coach too, where it's like if we were beating him and he knew I was the reason we were winning, like soccer, basketball, baseball, he would literally pull me out and not let me play. He'd be like, okay, we're just going to let other kids. And I'd be like, Dad, I'm having a good game here. Like, what are you doing here? Or like he'd put me in goalie, which was like, He's like, the only way he put me in defense, but I'd always just go coast to coast and score. So he's like, I can't put you on defense because I don't trust. And then he made a rule that I like actually thought was in the rule books. He's like, yeah, we have to have one defender that can't cross half field, and that's gonna be you. So I thought that was a rule, and like until I found out that it wasn't. But I was like, that whole time I was like, oh, like I'd have to pass it off, or I'd just like bomb it from like try to get it in or whatever. And then my dad's like, no, you're out. Like we're not doing that. But yeah, I don't know. Sports as like, do you have a desire to coach your kids then?
I would like to.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know like how much, like, I just don't know how much time I'm gonna have at that point. So
yeah,
really it depends. I'd love to have like a barn type thing that I could throw a batting cage in.
Yeah.
But like that's a very like long shot.
Yeah.
Thing.
Do you see yourself being like the little league dad that's all the parents go to you to like, hey, you're coaching this season? Like that's what happened to my dad, and that's why he ended up coaching like all the sports that we did, because he didn't know what soccer was. And then they were like, hey, you're gonna coach soccer, and he's like, Rachel was gonna play soccer, and he was like, I don't even know what soccer is. So he had to go to the gym teacher because my mom was the
Ted
principal.
Lasso here.
Yeah, he went to the gym teacher, got a pamphlet on how to play soccer. It read it the night before that he was going to coach that game. And then ever since then, then it was like, okay, Rachel's playing soccer. Then everyone else is playing soccer because you do what the oldest does, right? You follow the leader.
It makes it easier to stay in one sport for sure.
Yeah, no. And then obviously like we branched out and stuff. But like that was the only reason we got into soccer, was because Rachel decided that I want to play soccer, which then she stopped like in whatever grade, 6th grade or something like that. She was like, I'm good. Like I prefer performing or whatever that is, but yeah, no, I think for me, I do have a desire to like coach my kids, but it's just like that balance, you got to figure out what type of coach you're going to be and whatnot,
Yeah. I definitely like had a lot of like learning in that already. I have a little brother that's 5 years younger than me.
Okay.
So, like, just not, like, I've been very critical of him. So, like, now I can learn, like, not to do that with my kids.
Yep.
Like, as bad as that was, I can at least, like, hopefully grow in that and then be a better, like, guide and
like, nurturing is, like, almost too soft of a word. But just that idea, it's like there is growth in nurturing. Yeah. And not, like, you're doing this wrong. Like,
exactly.
It's like, yeah.
Or, like, just, like, I feel like for me, it was like not wanting to like have him hurt. So like just like pushing farther and like, but also just I would do other things too that weren't great too. So
yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming years and whatnot. So, well, Jarrett, I appreciate you being on the show. We covered a lot of topics, and thanks everyone for watching. Alex, thanks for switching.
Not a problem.
And we'll see you next week with the next episode. All right. Peace.